Welcome to Message Crawler Video Manual. I'm sure you know software manuals alone and no one's got time to read them. So in this video manual, I condensed everything you need to know about RSMF file format as well as Message Crawler into a video series divided in chapters so you can watch only the chapters you want. In this first chapter, we're going to talk about what is RSMF file format and what is Message Crawler. And in the subsequent chapters, we're going to go hands-on and we're actually going to do conversion of DAT files and Slack messages and so on into RSMF file format. So feel free to find the chapter you're looking for and click on that and watch that video. However, do not skip this chapter. This is an introduction. So let's dive right into the PowerPoint that I put together. All right, now that we have PowerPoint on the screen, let's start going over what is RSMF. RSMF is a file format created by Relativity to store short text messages. What's a short text message? Well, it's a text message, a message on Slack, maybe a Bloomberg email. So any kind of quick communications where people send messages back and forth, right? Not long emails, but short messages. Now, RSMF stores multiple messages in one container. So that's its goal. So you don't have individual files per message, you have a container with multiple messages. This container is actually an EML file format. And it's an EML that contains a JSON file, which is like a metadata file that contains all the from, to, CCs, and so on. And that EML file contains all the attachments. So everything is packaged together nicely and interconnected to one another. Now, the smart part about this file format is it's meant to be somewhat compatible with other software. So if you were to take RSMF file and process in different engine, not in Relativity, you would still be able to extract your attachments as well as your text messages, or at least most of them. Depends how software put those messages into RSMF. You may or may not have great luck with it. The way Message Crawler does, it maximizes third-party compatibility. So if you were to use non-relativity processing engine, you can still get to all the information, even though it's not going to be as pretty as if you were looking at it inside Relativity. Now, RSMF file format. It is a complicated file format. It took me a while to build this application, and I feel like everyone should familiarize with RSMF file format specs to best of their abilities. Take it as far as you can. Everyone's technical knowledge is different, so go to Relativity website, read the specifications, see how much of it you can understand. The more you understand, the better you will be at working with these files. At the minimum, you should understand what data needs to go into RSMF file so that you have a good representation of your text message. All right. So what is Message Crawler? Message Crawler is a Windows desktop application that is meant to create these RSMF files. And Message Crawler can take DAT files, it can take Slack JSON exports, Google Hangout, Bloomberg Instant, as well as DAT files created by other files, forensic software such as ESI Analyst DAT file or Oxygen Forensics Relativity export. So you can take all those sources, put them into Message Crawler, work with your data, and then create RSMF files. What else can Message Crawler do? Well, one of the important things it'll let you do is decide how to package your text messages. You don't want to just put all your messages into one giant file. You need to make some decisions as to how you're going to split up your messages, how you're going to group them. In some systems, it may be helpful to group them by, let's say, a room ID or a chat ID. And sometimes it's not. So Message Crawler will allow you to do that, and we'll talk more about it in subsequent videos and maybe even in this video. It also allows you to work with dates and times to format them. If you want to have date and no time, you can drop the time off. You can remove duplicative text messages if you're getting data from multiple sources and the same message is there. You can convert text messages from one time zone to another. Of course, that's useful if you want to be able to relate to text messages. Let's say everything was collected in GMT and you trying to understand it from user's perspective who is in the Eastern time zone. This would be a very helpful thing to do, as well as normalizing names. If you have data across multiple devices, contacts may be referenced by different names. They may have same phone number, but the name may be different. Everyone's got mom on their phone, right? But different people have different moms, right? And so you may want to put the actual person's name on all the devices from different sources. This way, when you look at the data, it makes more sense. There's some bonus tools included in Message Crawler. Just because these tools are helpful to have and I put them in, there's a directory list tool, there's an mbox to EML conversion tool, as well as Bloomberg XML email to EML conversion tool. Those are the things that I find handy, so I want everyone to have access to those tools. Now, how do we get those RSMF files into Relativity? There are some requirements. If you're using Relativity on-prem or Relativity server, you have to be on version 10.3 or higher. If you're on 10.2, there is partial support for this, but I suggest you don't do that. You don't load it into version 10.2. You need to upgrade to 10.3 or higher. And if you're on Relativity 1, you're automatically compatible with this, so you are good to go. To load RSMF files into Relativity, you need to use processing, Relativity processing. That is the tool that will take those files, open them up, read that JSON file inside, organize everything, pull out attachments, and make everything look nice and pretty. If you were to use single file upload, you will not get attachments. Also, don't try to create like a cross-reference, like a dir list, and load them in. That will not work as well. Relativity processing is the only way to go. All right, and once you load data into Relativity, it will look just like that. Well, if you're in a new user interface, that is. This is a new UI that was announced in 2019. This is what RSMF files will look like. You will have your filter on the left, so you can filter by dates and names. On top, you will see who the participants of the conversation were, so you know the group of people who were reading these messages. On the bottom, you will have a nice timeline, which you can use for filtering and analyzing, understanding how many messages were sent per day, and so on. And of course, in the middle, you have your actual conversation, which will have some of the content embedded into it, which are pictures, videos, animated GIFs, and so on. If you have like an Office attachments, there'll be just an icon which you will click on. It'll take you to a new document because you can't show Word in the middle of right in the middle of a message. If you have a slightly older version of Relativity, it will look something like this, which is totally fine as well. So now that you have your data in Relativity, how do you work with it? How do you review that data? Well, you review as normal. You treat RSMF file as a normal document. You tag it in the coding panel. If you need to perform a mass operation, you can do that as well. Something you cannot do is you cannot act on individual messages within RSMF file. So that makes it important to make your decisions as to how you're going to organize your data up front. But everything else, review just like before. You tag it, you code it, you do all the usual things you do when you review in your documents. How do you produce them? Again, they're regular files, so you can click on image button and make an image out of it. You can produce it as a native file. If you don't want to produce something, you can exclude that RSMF file, of course. And if you want to produce part of the RSMF file, you image it and you redact something you don't want to produce. Basically, it works like regular email. If there's a portion of an email you want blanked out, you image it and you redact it. And then you URCR that document. And because of that, small conversations are better for productions, right? Because you have a smaller groups of messages. So if there's something you don't want to produce, you image and you redact and you're done. But they become a little bit more difficult to review because there is a higher document count. So you got to go to next more often. On the other side, if you have longer conversations where you take entire room, let's say, or big chat group, and you dump it into one file, well, review becomes easier because you can just scroll down the whole list. But when it comes time to produce, well, now you're saying like, oh, wait, I don't want these produced, I don't want that produced. So now you have to redact all those pages. Again, this decision will have to be made upfront based on frequency of communications and other things that we will get to. We'll have a separate video just talking about how we're going to group our text messages. Now, how do you get Message Crawler? Well, you can download the evaluation version for free at #legal.com. The evaluation version has most of the features that full version has. The one thing it does is it will replace some of the text messages with something like "thank you for evaluating Message Crawler." This way you cannot use it on a real project, but you can evaluate your entire workflow using trial version of Message Crawler. In fact, I encourage you to do so to make sure your workflow does work for you. So you download the software, you perform the conversion of your files, you load it to Relativity with processing, you look at the results you get, you can image and you can run test productions, and this way you know your whole workflow from beginning to end is good and solid. And only once you've done that, you can go to my website and purchase a license with a credit card, and then you will have a full unlocked version of software that you can use on a real project. Now, the way software is licensed is it's per workstation per year. All right, and with that in mind, we're at the last slide. Any questions, comments, email me. This is an active project, so what you see in these demos, what you see in screenshots is likely to be changed a little bit here and there. I'm adding additional file type support. I'm making adjustments for better workflow. And I really value your feedback, and not just saying, please support this file type, but saying like, look, here's the problem I'm dealing with. I have 6 gigabytes of Slack. I'm having trouble figuring this out. And this is where I added a feature where you can do date filtering, because somebody had issues with too much Slack data and they wanted to pre-filter the data. So I said, all right, you got it. Let me add a feature. So keep in mind, this is an ongoing and live project. Your feedback is very much appreciated, and the software is changing on weekly basis. And that concludes our introduction to RSMF file format and Message Crawler. Look out for more chapters of this video manual, and you'll be able to jump to the sections that you're interested in. Let's say if you need to do Slack conversion, just go right on to that, and I will explain you all the things you need to know about Slack and how to convert them to RSMF. I will see you in the next chapter.